Well, I'm excited to announce this group because they're all friends of mine. We are all part of the Urban Pest Management Technical Committee. And yes, you're my friend, Stan. So I'm honored to be able to introduce them here today. Our person that'll be interviewed is Dr. Stan Cope with Rose Pest Control, and he's got his fan club here. Stan was born and raised in Huntington, Indiana. He holds a bachelor's degree in biology from Swarthmore College, a master's degree in entomology from Delaware, and his PhD in public health from UCLA. He served almost 24 years as a medical entomologist in the United States Navy, so thank you for your service, including 4 years as the head bug guy for the Department of Defense. Stan retired from the Navy in 2012 with the rank of captain. He then joined AP&G, Catchmaster as Vice President of Technical Products and Services, and he moved to his current position with Rose in September 2023. He's published over 100 scientific and technical papers, delivered well over 250 presentations all around the world, and has done his research on or operational entomology in over 20 countries. He's worked on mosquitoes for 40 years, also served as technical reviewer for the 11th edition of the Malice Handbook of Pest Control, recently released. He is past president of the American Mosquito Association and member of Pi Chi Omega. Finally, Stan received his Pest Vet of the Year award in 2021 from National Pest Management Association. And he was inducted into his hometown Huntington County Honors this past year, 2025. Our interviewers will be Mike Tome of Rent-A-Kill Terminex. Mike has been active in the structural pest management industry for over 22 years. His experience includes 11 years as a specialist, 3 years as an operation manager, and 8 years in his current role as technical services manager. In these roles, Mike has been responsible for providing services and solutions in several market segments, developing training programs and SOPs, and supporting customers around the country struggling with pests in their facilities. Mike is passionate about transforming service in sensitive environments to help protect people and enhance lives. And then we have Jen Sweeney Ingram. Jen is the technical director at All American Pest Control based in Nashville, Tennessee. She holds a BA in anthropology, and if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear about her interesting story with that, from UMass in Amherst, and a master's degree in entomology from Texas A&M. Jen has worked in the pest control industry since 2018 and earned her board certification in 2020. She's a member of the Urban Pest Management Technical Committee and co-host the UPMTC Beyond the Pest podcast. Please welcome our speakers.
I'm going to be honest, I don't even care that no one has listened to our podcast. We got introduced by a legend, and we are about to interview a legend.
Just so you know, Pat said these are about careers and progress. This one's going to be the opposite of that, so you can see what that looks like today, too.
Mike and I have been doing this Beyond the Pest podcast now for almost a year. Okay. Today is our first in-person podcast, technically the 8th that we've done. Our last podcast, as Pat had mentioned, was kind of a highlight of 2025, and it was just Mike and I. And we really said a highlight of 2025 was just starting the podcast, starting it, because, everyone has a podcast now, so we're late in the game, but it's been a lot of fun. And one of the highlights already, along with this being Mike and our first time at Purdue.
Yep, my first time.
It's my first time realizing that Mike has legs.
Yeah. We've been working together on this for a year, and we've never actually met until yesterday in person. Yeah. So we've been a part of the same groups, but we've just never been in the same place at the same time. So I'm upset that you're taller than me. I didn't realize that was a thing until yesterday.
So we're really happy to have Captain Stan here to talk with us about mosquitoes. But we always like to start our podcasts off with more so just getting to know how they got into the industry in the first place, since many of us stumble right into it. So, Captain Stan, how did you stumble into the pest management industry? Did it find you or did you find it?
We'll cover that.
Okay.
Congratulations to Purdue on the big anniversary. And some of you know this already, but I just love coming back here. My grandfather actually built the Purdue Memorial Union as well as the football stadium here. And my mom's whole family's from here. So Purdue's a pretty cool place for me. The word that I use to describe my career is kind of serendipity. I literally fell into most of it. I'm from a small town in Indiana, Huntington, as Pat mentioned. And my dad was a doctor there, and we were kind of the big fish in a little pond thing. And it was always assumed that I was going to be a medical doctor, just like my dad and my brother and everybody, right? Well, the only one who didn't ever assume that was me. And when I got into college, let's just say I underperformed a little bit, because I knew that if I made the grades, I was going to go to medical school. And I absolutely did not want to do that. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't think I could stick needles into people and do that kind of stuff.
So you tanked it.
I wouldn't say I tanked it. I underperformed. So then when I graduated from Swarthmore, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I really had no clue. And so I took a year off, and of all things, I worked in a sporting goods store in downtown Philadelphia and tried to get my life together. And then my father approached me and said, "Hey, Junior, if you don't do something with your life, I'm cutting you out of the will." Well, that was enough to get me motivated. And I had a friend who was in the entomology department at the University of Delaware, and he said, "This is pretty cool. Why don't you come here?" I'd had a class in college called Biology of Animal Communities, and we did some stuff with some insects. So that was pretty cool. So I went to Delaware for 3 years, and one of the classes I had there was called The Impact of Arthropods on History or something like that. And I found it fascinating, and I still do. It's one of my favorite subjects. And so that's what really turned me on. Well, then when it was time to graduate, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I answered an ad in a newsletter about going to the UCLA School of Public Health and learning medical entomology in a public health setting or something like that. I didn't even really know what it meant. I said, well, that sounds okay. So I ended up going there. And then when I finished there, I was in the advanced program. I was there 8 years. I needed a job. And the Army and the Navy were both recruiting entomologists. And I said, well, that's okay. Maybe I'll try that. And from then it was so stumble, bumble, rumble, fumble all along the way, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm still not sure, but I don't think I'm going to get too many more chances.
So where did the Captain Stan the Mosquito Man come from?
Well, the captain part came from my rank in the Navy when I retired, which is the same as a full bird colonel. So I expect a few salutes from you during this, by the way.
I got you.
And when I was at Catchmaster, the marketing team asked me if I could meet with them. They said, we have this idea, but you're going to probably think it's really dumb. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, how about if we do this Captain Stan the Mosquito Man thing? And they made that logo right there. That's my official Navy uniform. And if you look closely, there's a mosquito on my left shoulder. And that's how it started. And I just was dumbfounded how successful it was, or still is, kind of.
So you were, kind enough to give me your 14-page CV. I was said I wasn't going to embarrass you about that.
You said you were having trouble sleeping at
14
night.
pages. I know. I tried to memorize the whole thing. Well, clearly you've done so much. And I was telling you in the hall earlier, I don't know how one person does so much in their lifetime. So I said, you've got to have the best family ever. But what are some of your proudest accomplishments throughout your 40 plus year career?
You mentioned my family, and I owe them everything, because being in the Navy for 24 years and moving and being on the road all the time was really rough. And sorry. But just keeping that all together was impressive. Finishing my PhD, because I never thought I had what it took, and I probably still don't. But if you stay in one place long enough, they want to get rid of you, so they'll give you whatever degree it is that you're there to get.
Okay, good to know.
I think being president of the American Mosquito Control Association, even though it was during the Zika outbreak year, which was a mess. I thought I was going to go to all these fun meetings and drink beer. Instead, they wanted me to testify on television and some of this other stuff, and I said, no. And also, when I was involved in the mosquito control group, we started a really cool thing called the Young Professionals. And we were sitting at a meeting one time when I was on the board of directors, and I held up my hand and I said, we're a bunch of old white men that likes to kill things, and we need to change that, because that's what the mosquito control profession was. It started in 1935. And so we started this group, and it's just been magical. I'm not involved with it anymore, but over 40% now of the AMCA members have come in through that young professional program that had a lot of industry support with travel grants and all kinds of cool stuff. I just only have a few more.
No, please.
On this long list. The Pest Vets helping to start that. We can talk a little more about that later if you want to. And I think probably the thing that has overarched all of that was the ability to remain a mentor to so many people, good and bad for them, I guess. But it started out in the military because you're really a military officer first, you're a scientist second. And a lot of that military thing is mentoring and developing the junior officers and all that stuff. But I've been able to continue doing it in private industry, which I've been now in for 13 years, I guess.
I do want to hear a little bit about the Pest Vets, if you can talk to us about that. How did you get it started, and with what help?
Well, quite honestly, a chap called Marty Overline, who runs Aardvark Pest Control in Philadelphia, we had not met. He came to me at a meeting, and he said he was an Air Force technician, did pest control in the Air Force years ago. And he had this idea. He said, people from the military could come into our industry, and, they have so many skills and yada, yada, yada. And he said he had raised the idea a few times, I'll just say, and it never got any traction. And when he asked me about it, Bob Rosenberg, the late president of NPMA, had just come to my retirement ceremony not too long ago. And I approached him about it and explained it to him. And he said, it starts today. What do you need us to do? And it started out as a, Curtis, correct me if I get this wrong. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? He's my boss, and Curtis is the current chair of the National Pest Vets Council. It started out as just trying to recruit people, make them aware of our industry, veterans, whether they were retired or only did 1 or 2 tours. Because, as I said, there's so many different things they can do besides pest control. They're all trained in leadership, finance, admin, that kind of stuff. And now, and very proudly, it has turned into a philanthropic effort. There are 13 or 14. Illinois is the latest state chapter. All kinds of activities, coat drives, sock drives. In Illinois, we just recently delivered thousands of T-shirts and underwear, believe it or not, to a VA hospital because that's what they needed. And it's been very rewarding. We have a Pest Vet of the Year award that we give that's national. What am I leaving out? Yeah. And thank you. If any of you have veterans on your teams, the nominations are open right now for the Pest Vet of the Year award. They get a free trip to Washington, D.C., a tour around Washington, D.C., and it's very cool.
It sounds like a couple themes that I'm picking up on is you were just a supportive friend. So your buddy is in school. He says, you want to come over here. And you've got a buddy that says, want to get involved in pest vets. So would you say that that's kind of how you stumbled into a lot of?
Yeah. When you hear a good idea that somebody has, you got to steal it from them and then take all the credit. That's how I've gotten where I am.
Okay.
Stan, when we got together and we started talking about this, obviously you have to come up with a catchy name. You can't just say Jen and Mike talk to Stan, right? Like, who's going to come see that? So you had thrown out there cool, dark, moist, and I'll give you a minute there, a little spit take.
Why'd you have to put moist in there? Why
did you say the 4 magic words?
He chose moist. I did not. So cool, dark, moist, and out of the wind. That was it. So help us understand, why are those the 4 magic words?
How many of you in the audience have heard me talk? Yeah, look at them. Look at the hands going up, right? The big 4. People don't even wave at me anymore. They just hold up 4 fingers. And they're like Shep's doing, man. It's great. This is one of my real points that I try to emphasize in almost all my talks. Adult mosquitoes are not randomly distributed in a person's yard or a commercial property. They just aren't. They're these fragile little teeny insects which have impacted human history tremendously, by the way, as many of you probably know. But they'll dry out, they'll desiccate, and they'll die, and that's not in their best interests. So the places where the adult mosquitoes are going to be found on a property are where it's a little cooler, and we're talking microclimate here now, not 50 degrees cooler. Cool, a little bit of shade, a little bit of moisture. Picture underneath somebody's deck where they have a leak, and it's staying nice and moist under there, and out of the wind. They're very weak flyers. So that's kind of why I wanted to title it this, to give me a chance to talk about it, because it is one of my favorite subjects.
Can we get just a show of hands? Does your company have a mosquito program?
Good.
Perfect.
So
I figure if you showed up to this talk, your company probably does.
I'm sorry, we have a mosquito program in my company?
That was going to be problematic.
So the bottom line, folks, is you don't need to treat the whole yard. I've been with technicians who get out and they start, it's like Rambo. They put on the sprayer and they start soaking and hoping, or spraying and praying. Focus those efforts where it's cool, shaded, moist, and out of the wind, and you'll save time, you'll save money, and all those things.
Can you just talk to us more now that we're delving into the topic? What does a program absolutely need? And if there's anything else that our technicians can ignore or just put on the back burner as not as important in a mosquito program? Or for our companies, what should they implement?
Boy, that's a big question. You didn't tell me you were going to ask me that.
I'm getting very complex here.
Okay.
What do we need?
Well, there are basic steps in a mosquito control program. Obviously, it's going to start with an inspection like everything else. Sometimes there's an initial treatment, but then usually I think most of the services are monthly. You absolutely, particularly in certain parts of the country, you have to take the time to do a thorough inspection on every visit. In places, is this what you wanted me to talk about? Okay. In places where it's really hot and really humid, mosquitoes don't read the textbooks. They don't know that they're supposed to spend about 2 weeks in their life cycle from egg to adult. In places like Lafayette, Indiana, the life cycle can be completed from egg to adult in as little as 5 days. So if you're only on a property every 30 days, stuff's going to happen, if you know what I mean. And with some of the invasive mosquitoes that we have now, the Asian tiger and the Asian bush mosquito and a couple others, they lay these drought-resistant eggs, and they don't put them in water. They put them near where it's going to flood. Those eggs can last for a year or more. So if you just get a rain shower and it fills up some old tires or a bird bath or things like that has these eggs just sitting in there, you're going to have mosquitoes in a week, and you're going to have callbacks and unhappy customers. So besides the treatments and all those things, the most important thing is a thorough inspection every time. One bottle cap can produce 100 mosquitoes, one bottle cap full of water. That's been tested in the lab and verified, actually, because I didn't believe it. And you've all seen some of these yards where there's stuff everywhere that can hold water. We've all seen them, and it only takes one. So that's my advice.
If you don't mind, you told us a really funny story yesterday about some tires going up to a slide.
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah, do you mind? Because I think everybody would appreciate it.
Are you going to mention the?
I'll mention your turkey basters.
Those are highly sophisticated mosquito surveillance devices, Jen. They are not crappy plastic turkey basters.
If y'all want one of these, please save questions to the end, and then we've got 3 turkey basters for your inspection.
Also, thankfully,
I signed them. They're autographed.
Thankfully, he can order these off Amazon now and doesn't have to go to the store and buy 40 turkey basters, because that's a really uncomfortable conversation you have to have with the person checking you out.
And that happened once. Captain, what are you going to to use these for exactly?
I said I was
because we didn't buy anything else except 40 turkey basters. Okay, so pest management in the Department of Defense is kind of an interesting thing. We have our usual cast of characters. I used to refer to them as the Malathion for lunch bunch, because they would really do some interesting things. And one time during my first tour, I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, and I got a call. Naval Supply Corps school, the children at the daycare center are being chewed up by mosquitoes during the day. This was when the Asian tiger mosquito first showed up and started to spread. And they, you got to come up here yesterday and do something about it. So I put on my nice white Navy uniform with the gold things and puffed my chest out and drove up there. I was brand new. I was in the Navy like for 6 weeks. And I showed up. And when you do one of these things in the military, all these different people are going to come to see if you're going to get them in trouble by what you either say or do, especially when you're a pest professional. Because if you tell them that, they should have done this or should have done that, somebody's probably going to get fired. So anyway, what had happened was, well, they had built a ramp of tires and lashed them down for the kids to climb up and down on, so their little butts would be tired out by the end of the day when the parents came to pick them up, right? And of course, those tires were full of water. And also, by the way, inside those tires is cool shade of moisten out of the wind. And once you get a little debris in there, which will feed the larvae, well, you just can't believe the numbers of mosquitoes that will come out of that. Just amazing. So I said proudly, we're not going to have to use any pesticides here. We're going to solve this with integrated mosquito management. And one of the things is to keep those tires cleaned out. And the other one is simply drill holes in the tires. Yes, sir, Lieutenant, we'll take care of that. 6 weeks later, hello, it didn't work. So I said, okay, I'll come back up. It was like an hour and a half drive in Athens, Georgia. And I got up there and they had drilled the holes in the tops of the tires. That was my introduction to DoD pest management. And as you heard, I had the privilege of being the head bug guy for overseeing the entire Department of Defense pest control for 4 years, which was a really cool job. This includes all the State Department things, all the embassies, pest control on all the ships, pest control on things like submarines, where the only thing you can ever use is just your mind. It was really fun. So that's one of the better ones.
I think that's a good example, though. Like when we talk so much about having conversations with our customers, right? That's, inspection conversation. You talked about it in your talk earlier, right? That we can't assume anything, right? Like we have to walk them through the process. This is what we
You know
need
what
you
they
to
say
do.
about the word assume?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do.
Just
I
one
gotcha.
check.
Yeah. So, but you before had mentioned Zika. I'm sorry, we'll get us back on track here. You mentioned Zika, and it seems like every year there is a new sort of mosquito-borne disease that ends up all over the news.
Isn't it a beautiful thing?
But like, I don't remember that as a child of the 80s. Maybe I just don't know. I don't remember that being a thing. And it seems like every year now there is some new mosquito-borne disease. So I guess two-part question. Why is that? Why are we seeing this sort of, increase in this? And then two, are there any that we as professionals should be looking out for?
These are really complicated questions you're asking
I'm
me.
sorry, man.
I remember in the Nashville area this year.
I don't have enough time to make up my answers.
It was West Nile was all over our news locally.
Yeah, there are a few reasons for it. Climate change is one, and we can discuss that after I list some of these other ones. Many of these diseases like malaria and Zika and chikungunya, which is now occurring in the United States, and yellow fever, and what did I forget? Dengue fever, of which there was a big outbreak in Florida last year, locally acquired cases, lots of them. They're different from West Nile virus. They don't have an animal reservoir. West Nile virus exists in birds. And every year the mosquitoes start feeding on the birds, the virus builds up and then it spills over, right? These other ones that I mentioned do not have an animal reservoir. So the virus or the parasite has to be continually reintroduced in an area in an infected person.
Okay.
So let's say you, Mike, you won a trip to the Caribbean, right? And you go down there and you're having the time of your life. You're drinking every day and eating every night. And on your last day there, you get bitten by a yellow fever mosquito that has dengue virus, okay? The incubation period's about a week.
Okay.
So the next day you've traveled home, you're in your yard and you live in Miami for purposes of this. And suddenly your blood is teeming with dengue virus. Well, also you're a public health nuisance, so you have mosquitoes breeding on your property. They feed on you, and the next thing you know, you've got these local cases. That's how it happens.
Okay.
So the increased global travel is one thing. You can be anywhere in the world in 24 hours. The real lack of public health and pest control infrastructure in a lot of places where these viruses occur. And then I just want to talk about the climate change for a little bit, because it's just more than the temperature. All the different factors, there's like 7 of them. One is there's going to be a new susceptible population as the mosquitoes, in this case, move into new areas. There are going to be people there that have never been exposed to some of these things, right? The life cycle of the mosquitoes goes faster when it's warmer. I already mentioned that. And probably most importantly is what's called the extrinsic incubation period. That's the time from when a mosquito picks up, I'll use virus and not malaria this time, the time from when they pick it up from an infected person until they can transmit it to somebody else. It doesn't happen right away. That whole cycle goes much faster in the mosquito. So they're going to live longer. The period of time over which they can actually transmit the virus is going to be longer. And these invasive mosquitoes are moving all over the country. The yellow fever mosquito has marched right up the Central Valley of California, and with 60-some mosquito abatement districts there, they have not been able to stop it. It's now in San Francisco. So we're going to keep seeing this. But that's also part of the reason why something like Zika disappeared, because it's not maintained locally in an animal. So we have to have it get reintroduced. And in the last situation that we had, so many people got infected that the virus burned itself out. So the bottom line is these things are going to continue to happen. After we have a new generation of susceptible people that didn't get infected the first time, these outbreaks are going to come back. And we've seen that the last few years. The state of Washington just had their first ever locally acquired case of malaria in a woman who had never been out of the country. Southern California now has cases of dengue every year. Arkansas and Maryland, of all places, had locally acquired malaria cases, which made big news. So it's going to continue to happen, and we're going to see not only more outbreaks, but more cases in those outbreaks.
So I know, like, I'm thinking of, in Zika, we get these big headlines. CDC gives their recommendations. I picture the trucks in the streets, of the city blowing the pesticides and all hands on deck, and the need to inform the public. But I also remember, especially with Zika, the talk of GMO mosquitoes came up.
Yeah, let me make another point, though, before we get to GMO, okay?
Absolutely.
Because you said the magic thing of the trucks going through the streets.
Ooh.
Well, what are we concerned about with these invasive Aedes mosquitoes, folks? When do they feed? They feed during the daytime, right out in the middle of the sun. So the typical mosquito control of the truck driving through the neighborhood at night so that the fog will disperse a little bit doesn't even touch those day-biting mosquitoes. That's where you all come in, because you're in people's yards where these things are in artificial containers. They're in bird baths. They're in plant sauce drippers, plant drip saucers.
He did that on purpose.
He did that 100%.
Yeah. Close enough. Tree holes, clogged gutters. And that's where we come in, because we can do something about those, right? Because we're in the people's yards. I just wanted to point that out. Not that the tax base, the trucks going around, they control a lot of mosquitoes, don't get me wrong. But they are specifically not going to get the day biters that are, the fog doesn't come out of the truck and go over the fence and around behind Mrs. Jones's house and down under her deck. They're just not trained to do that.
I would also say that they're maybe getting the cool and dark, but not the moist and out of the wind, right?
Look at you go. You're trying to earn a turkey baster, aren't you?
My name on it.
Moderators are not allowed to get the door prizes, my friends. GMO. That's kind of a buzzword for several different things, particularly when it comes to mosquito control. And I'll just mention a couple of them. But, GMO is a hot topic in some parts of the country, particularly. Genetically modified equals bad, right? Well, in agriculture, which is a good thing to talk about when you're at Purdue, there's a lot of GMO that's done to extend the shelf life, to make things taste better, to make it cheaper, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of it going on. In the mosquito control world, there are really three things that kind of get lumped together as GMO, genetically modified, even though only one of them is. The first one is something that some of you may know about. It's been around for 70 or 80 years. It's called the sterile insect technique. It was used to push the primary screwworm all the way down through Mexico and Central America, all the way to Panama, to protect the cattle industry in parts of the United States. That is simply the flies in this case, but also it's applied with some mosquitoes. The males are simply sterilized. They're given a zap of radiation, and so then they're released, and when they mate, nothing happens. So that's the sterile insect technique. That is not regulated by EPA. You don't need to get an experimental use permit or anything. You can do that. Excuse me. And that's been done a few places with mosquitoes and some success, okay? The second one, which is also not technically genetic modification, involves injecting a naturally occurring bacterium that occurs in over 60% of insects, but not in the yellow fever mosquito. You put that bacterium into the males, and then when they mate, there's a population suppression. It drops way down just because the eggs are not going to hatch, okay? That one's regulated by EPA, and you need an experimental use permit, but it's not genetic modification. And then the third one, the one you've been waiting for, a self-limiting gene and a fluorescent gene are actually put into the mosquito eggs, and then when they hatch, it suppresses the population. Okay, it's that simple. So it's genes are actually being injected. The genes are synthetically made, and they're actually being injected into the mosquito eggs. So that's genetic modification. I just want to make a couple of points about it, though, because some countries in the Caribbean have made this mistake. If you're in the middle of a vector-borne disease outbreak, let's say West Nile or any of these things, the last thing you want to do is spend money to pay for genetic modification, because it's labor intensive, it's slow acting, it's very expensive, and in some places it has not worked. There's been some success. The Cayman Islands, Texas did some, Key West did some, Florida, which was very controversial.
That makes sense. More of an island environment
Yeah.
where they can't go that.
And these mosquitoes, one female mosquito can lay 150 to 300 eggs. So as soon as you stop doing this for expense or whatever reason, somebody loses interest, the population comes right back. So I'm not saying we shouldn't investigate it. I'm all for trying new things, but be not the first by whom the new is tried, or the last to lay the old aside. Alexander Pope.
I know you're full of those.
Not Popo.
So I'm curious. So our company, there's always some customers that will call us at the end of the mosquito season, and they want to cancel because they don't see mosquitoes anymore, and they say it's cold out. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to talk to those customers and keep the service going?
Yeah, but I can't tell it because you're a competing company.
Oh.
Joke. Yes. I actually have put a presentation together on that and published a paper about it. At the end of the mosquito season, even when it's starting to get cooler, the female mosquitoes, which are the ones that are going to overwinter, know that this is coming. So they get a final blood meal, but instead of using that to lay eggs, they turn it into a fat reserve. Okay? It's a food source to get them through the tough times. And then they will go find a place to overwinter, to spend the days, like some people going to Florida, I guess. And they will just go and quietly sit there and wait until it warms up again, right? So the way to approach this is to modify your last mosquito service, and instead of spraying the vegetation and doing those types of things to make a barrier, target the places where these female mosquitoes are going to be overwintering. That would be places like crawl spaces. Any crack or crevice in a building is enough. They just need a little bit of an area. Cellars, animal burrows is a huge one. And, if you go there with the intent of targeting those areas instead of the ones you've been treating all summer, that's the way to approach that. At least I think so. And the company this was before I was with Rose. The company that I helped develop that, their cancellations dropped 70% the first year.
I think we're going to steal that one, boss. Thank you so much for
Well,
that.
actually,
That's really
it's patented, and I will get a significant royalty once you do that. So let's keep talking about it.
So we talked about a couple of things that do work, right? I'm sure over your career traveling the globe, I have a neighbor who's convinced that oregano oil is the solution for everything. It's like, you know what I mean? You have a cold, oregano oil. You got mosquitoes, or so. What are some of the things, right?
Sorry.
What are some things that you've seen in your career that don't work that I think are popularly believed to work, and then two, like, hey, Brad, what's like the wildest thing that you've seen out there as an attempt at mosquito control?
Well, the wildest thing about mosquitoes that I've heard, not necessarily for control, was reported to me from the state of Washington by somebody who I worked with who was out there. And it was about a month after the state of Washington legalized marijuana. I'm just saying.
Okay.
This person said that he knew that mosquitoes had X-ray vision, so they can see through our skin.
Okay.
And that their favorite color is blue, which is what the blood in our veins is, right? Before it gets oxygenated. And so that's why mosquitoes like to bite us, because they can see through our skin and they like the color blue. How can you refute that?
You can't. Look,
I forgot to do the little part where he was going.
I was just going to say, currently in the Seattle area, there are reports of people breaking into rodent bait stations and consuming the rodenticide because apparently it increases the high of some of the drugs that are out there. So that's a real thing that's happening.
Why not?
Yeah, right.
But I sort of campaign on this very topic because, to just be blunt, there's no scientific evidence to back up so many of these things that are promoted. Particularly now, as we start to get into the springtime, you're going to see these. They just don't work. Citronella candles, there's no evidence that they work.
You can just ruin my wife's entire summer plan. I just want you to know that
Citronella candles don't work at all.
There's
Tiki
no scientific
torches?
evidence.
What about the plants themselves?
Hang on.
Okay.
Mosquito repelling plants, they have essential oils inside them that will repel mosquitoes to some degree, right? But they're inside the plant. So if somebody buys a bunch of these plants, and you can spend a lot of money on them, and puts them all around their yard, it's really not going to do very much unless they macerate the plants and smear them all over. Okay. I told you I'd work that word in.
That's good.
Yeah. Bug zappers, the science shows that less than 1% of what's in a bug zapper is mosquitoes, and they probably fly in by accident. But people buy them. Why? They like the cool light and they like the cool sound.
Yeah.
That's a bug zapper imitation. Yeah.
That can confirm.
Well, a little teeny mosquito is not going to make any sound at all when it goes in there. It's just going to get fried and probably explode. Another myth is people will buy bat houses and put them up because bats eat mosquitoes. Again, less than 1% in nature of what's in a bat's stomach is mosquitoes. And that doesn't make any sense because people know how they feed. They use sonar, right? They send out pings. And if they get a nice ping back, then they go over there and they eat that. Mosquito's not going to make much of a ping, so the bat's not going to waste its energy on that. There's a few others. The bracelets, those were actually outlawed in the state of New York a few years back.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it was illegal to sell them. They just don't work. And probably the biggest problem I have with all that is if somebody's using those things, they're going to have a false sense of security that they're being protected. So they're not going to do the things that we would explain to them that they need to do. Stay inside, dump the water, blah, 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 use repellents. Because they're going to think that this other hocus pocus magic stuff is protecting them. And that's troublesome to me.
I may or may not have bought those for my son last summer.
The little bracelet things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I poison my son? Don't answer that. No, don't answer. You already said it's outlawed in New York. So,
and the other thing too that I just want to briefly address is there are all these stories on the internet about if you eat garlic, if you're pregnant, you're going to be bitten more often. If you have type O blood, you're going to be bitten more often. There's one paper that came out on that is very suspicious science. None of that stuff works. It really doesn't matter what you eat. The bottom line is, how are we doing on time?
We're good. We're good.
Okay. The bottom line is that every one of us and every one of you, whether you like it or not, has somewhere scientifically about 350 different odors coming off of your skin at any given time for a lot of reasons, right? We can't detect most of them. Every once in a while, if you've ever been on an airplane next to somebody, you sort of get a little bit of that one. But a female mosquito has such sophisticated antennae that she can sort through all those molecules, individual molecules. So they're attracted from a distance by carbon dioxide. They can sense carbon dioxide, we think, up to about 100 to 150 feet. So then they get on that carbon dioxide and they start following that. Then as they get closer to a host, whether it's a human or not, because most mosquitoes don't even bite people, they will use things like heat and maybe motion and things like that. We're not quite sure. But then as the female gets closer, real close, she starts sorting through all of those different odors, okay? And eventually the combination is such that she says, that's where I'm going. So it's not random. So that's why some people are bitten all the time. And other people say, I sit out with my husband, he never gets bitten. I get chewed up. Why is that? That's not fair. Well, life isn't fair, right? So the way that I explain that in my classes is with just 3 little words, and it's not "I love you."
Oh.
We all have
Can I get that later?
We all have a unique chemical signature that the female mosquitoes respond to, and birds have a unique chemical signature. And there's one species of mosquitoes that only feeds on leeches and earthworms. That's all they'll bite. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
that is cool.
Yeah.
What about like any sort of perfumes or any scents that are attractive that you've heard about, or if somebody drinks a lot of alcohol or something like that, or any of those things attractive?
No.
Okay. I just saved y'all a question.
That
so I'm just
has
putting it out
more
there.
to do with me passing out in a hammock in the backyard overnight than it does.
That's true.
What you have to remember is some of these activities, like people at a 4th of July picnic and they're outside and they're sweating, they're putting off more carbon dioxide and lactic acid and things. And that's what attracts the mosquitoes. It's not the booze itself. But I will tell you that I regularly conduct that experiment in my hotel room when I'm traveling, just to be sure.
Just to make sure.
Okay, so you're in a big group of people, and it just happens to be that if I'm the lucky one of the 350 scents that are attractive qualities, I'm the one that gets bit up the most.
Yeah. One of the ways that I explain it in my classes is so that I like analogies and pretty simple ones because I'm a simple person from Huntington, Indiana. You're driving down the freeway in the middle of the summer and you're just starving and you got to get something to eat. And you get off at one of these intersections where there's every imaginable fast food restaurant. And you're driving along and you start to smell the different places. Well, eventually something happens that you decide which one you're going to go to. It's kind of like that with female mosquitoes, if I can go that far. But if we had released 100 female Asian tiger mosquitoes in the auditorium before this talk, which we did, not all of you would have been bitten by now. They would be very selective. Okay. So it's not random.
One thing that I wanted to ask you before we get to our question, because I do want to leave a good amount of time for that. Drones. I know I mentioned GMO mosquitoes, but the use of drones for mosquito control.
People in mosquito control have been using drones for a long time. They're now coming into our industry more and more to do inspections and things like that. But some of the places where mosquitoes breed prolifically, you can't use larvicide or anything like that, like the Everglades and places like that. And they've developed some integrated techniques of marsh management and things like that. But these are literally places that you can't get into. And so they'll fly the drones in and then map the area and things like that. They're also used now a lot along the East Coast and the Gulf Coast to treat salt marshes, because you really can't drive out onto those things or else you'll sink and drop out the other side of the earth. So they can fly the drones out there and deliver larvicide or sometimes adulticides. So that's what they've been using them for mainly, is identifying breeding sites, mapping, and some treatments. And it's been very, very successful.
A little bit of time left. Do you want to talk about the Malice, the new Malice book that you edited? And the QR code is there if y'all want to get your copy. But definitely wanted to give you a moment to talk about that. It's a lot of pages. It's a big book.
It was a lot of work, 2.5 years worth of work off and on. As you probably all know, the new Malice handbook is out. I was very privileged to be asked to be the technical editor. So I read all the chapters and edited them, and some of the authors are in this room. And those of you who are, I didn't have to do a single thing on your chapters, by the way. Shep. But it is available. I'm just going to put in a quick plug for it because Brad is sitting here and he probably doesn't want to haul those 3 epic tomes back to Ohio, right? Yeah. There's some new chapters in it. The format is new. If you haven't gone by the PCT table, are you still going to have them there, or is that all done? Oh, see, look at my lack of
You
information.
can stop by and talk to Brad at the end of this.
Brad's actually selling them out of the trunk of his car now. So
Brad will be out on the corner trying to sell them to some unknowing Purdue students. Yeah. There's a beautiful new color section. Thanks to Stoy Hedges, the late Stoy Hedges, who passed away during the editing process, which is when a lot of it got handed to, you know who, Mr. Gullible here.
It's Captain Gullible.
Captain Gullible.
Captain Gullible.
I like that. You're fired, maggot. Drop and give me $20, not push-ups, because you can't do 20 push-ups.
We're going to meet in the parking lot.
Hang around after this, because I'm knocking out 25. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Lord.
In your dreams, Pat.
I gotta protect this man's ADD.
You know, all
here.
that military stuff like that. And I shot a gun one time in 24 years in the Navy, and I almost blew off my commanding officer's foot with a 9mm pistol.
Oh my
No more firearms for Stan. No more.
goodness.
One other thing I just wanted to mention are there are a lot of mosquito traps now that are coming into our industry. Several of the different kinds are on display here. Most of them are black and they're plastic, right? And we're not going to talk too much about how they work. Some have pesticides, some don't, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of science behind them. I mean, one of the traps was literally developed by the CDC's dengue lab in Puerto Rico over years of experimentation. So just because they're black and they're plastic doesn't mean they're not pretty good. But they do different things, okay? They function in different ways for the most part. If you're thinking about incorporating traps into your program, which is kind of a good thing, they not only help with control, but they're also very good for monitoring and telling you how you're doing by leaving these traps on the customer's property and checking them. Talk to the distributors, talk to the manufacturers about their particular traps before you decide to buy them and use them, because they all do different things and they can explain what that is to you. The only other thing I wanted to mention are the new 25B or natural products that are coming in. We have more and more for mosquito control. Some of them are being demonstrated here. We have a lot of customers, as you all know, who will say, I want you to get rid of my mosquito problem, but I don't want you to spray anything, right? They don't want any harmful chemicals. So we have more and more of these 25B products. 25B is a designation by EPA. It means basically generally regarded as safe or reduced risk or something like that. The thing to know about them, though, is the manufacturers are not required. The EPA doesn't regulate those, so the manufacturers are not required to submit efficacy data. They can, and many of them have very good efficacy data on their products, but that's just one thing to keep in mind about them. But they're out there. They're basically combinations of essential oils, and I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much. Do we have a few minutes?
Yeah, we've got time, and we have turkey basters. So I'm going to come out here. We want to leave some time for you guys to ask some questions to Stan. We do have what?
We also have three official Captain Stan the Mosquito Man pens.
Would you like to hold them in your other hand?
So who's
Mike,
got a question right here?
Do you think it's more beneficial to put like an IGR, like a NiGuard, in a mosquito mister versus using a standard, like you were just talking about, the black plastic traps?
In the world of mosquito control, one size does not fit all. There would be different situations where you would do some of those things. That's why the whole idea of just going in and spraying is so appalling to me, because that just doesn't kill very many mosquitoes. So there are times to do all those different types of things. We don't really have time to talk about it today. Just remember what the stage of the target is. Are you going after larvae? Are you going after adults? We don't really go after pupae and eggs. And select your methodology and your products accordingly, because they all do different things. We're actually, our arsenal for mosquito control is dwindling as far as adulticides go, and it's a serious issue.
Hey, Dr. Stan, appreciate your talk here today. Question, I was down in Galveston, Texas area and got just devoured by these salt marsh mosquitoes.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It was crazy. It was only second to the Arctic Circle in my experiences. But are there any recent diseases associated with the salt marsh mosquito in the U.S.?
Not that we know of, thank goodness. They may play a part in some areas of just maintaining viruses, maybe, and other things that they're feeding on. But there are some parts of the world where large animals are actually suffocated because there are so many of those types of mosquitoes. So since you're here, I think you survived, right? I got to just tell this really quick story, and then I'll get another question. I was in a near fatal helicopter wreck in Venezuela as part of my naval duties. We smashed into a power line. We should have all been killed, right? So a few months later, I was at a meeting with some junior entomologists, and one of them said, "Hey, tell us about the helicopter wreck." Actually, it was several years later. So I'm telling them about this wreck and all this stuff, and their eyes are getting bigger and bigger, and they're all leaning in and drinking their beers. And finally, I kind of got to the end, and one of the guys looks up and he goes, "Sir, were you killed?" He has not lived that down to this day. I was injured pretty significantly. I had a closed head injury and couldn't read to my daughter for 8 months, but I was not killed.
All the way in the back here, Stan.
Few beers in on that one.
Yes, sir. You're talking about the female mosquito being attracted to certain odors, including CO2. I've been around some people who don't get bit and people who always get bit. Do you think these COPD chronic lungers with the high CO2s in their blood attract the female mosquito more so than normal people?
You mean people that don't have the illness?
Yeah. The chronic lungers usually run a high arterial CO2, and
Right.
I always hear them getting bit constantly.
Yeah. I mean, who's to say? What I would maybe guess is they're going to have labored breathing. I would think. So they're going to be putting out maybe more carbon dioxide. They're also usually going to be somewhat stationary, so they're kind of an easy mark. Carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so when people produce a lot of it, it forms a plume, what we call a plume, and the mosquito gets on that plume and follows it back to where they fly back and forth through it and follow it to wherever it's originating. So I would think they would be an easier mark, and they're producing a lot more carbon dioxide. That's just a swag, serious wild ass guess.
All right, Sam, we got a couple minutes left. Any parting words of wisdom for?
Well,
oh, we got more questions? I missed one. Sorry.
Who?
Back there.
I was curious about the essential oils you were talking about. How is that, or does it affect any of the honeybees or anything in the area?
There is actually a brand new product here that my buddy Danis is talking about that is, I think he said, Danis, are you here? No. Okay. I believe he said it's the first, and I'm not 100% sure. I think he said it's the first one to actually be labeled to say that it's safe for bees. There are some of them that are not terribly good for bees. I'll just put it that way. But I don't know exactly what's on all the labels of them. Maybe if there's any other distributors or manufacturers in here, they can correct me on that.
Thank you.
Did I miss
Mike, you've got some decisions to make on. Did you give them away?
I got one left.
Who got the turkey basters?
All right, we got one question here. Here we go.
I'll be happy to pose for pictures with you with your new tool if you'd like, with my mosquito tie.
You talk about those 4 issues to look for. Would you advise anything different or additional for commercial environments? Of course, there's a lot of different environments for commercial, but would there be anything in addition or different that you would advise looking for as far as treatment, inspection?
And before I answer that, ladies and gentlemen, what are those 4 conditions that he's talking about? Everybody give them up. This is now a religious revival. What are they? Amen. Mosquitoes be gone. There are some aspects of commercial mosquito control that are very similar. There are some that are not. One of the big things to look for is indoor plants. People will water the you-know-what out of them, and they'll have those drip saucers. Well, the Asian tiger, the Asian bush, and the yellow fever mosquito will go right inside. We had a huge problem with this in the Los Angeles school system a few years back. They'll go in there and they'll lay their eggs in anything that's holding water. A lot of times people will take a philodendron plant or something and they'll cut it off and they'll put it in some water on their desk because it looks really pretty. Those can be huge issues. Sometimes you're not really able to do a barrier treatment around those places. There may not be a lot of vegetation. Then you can look at things like trapping. One of the big things to look out for is lighting. A lot of the commercial things have really, really bright spotlights, and some mosquitoes are, like a lot of our pests, are highly attracted to those lights. So you can change the lighting scheme. One other really big thing to look for is flat roofs. And it only takes, a teeny bit of water up on those roofs. And some places where it rains all the time or pretty often, you'll have mosquitoes up there. We had a hospital in Houston, Texas one time, and the whole top of the parking garage for the doctors and the nurses was bubbling with mosquito larvae. I mean, it was amazing. So there's a few other things, but those are the big things, particularly looking around inside and seeing if they're breeding inside, because they'll go right in. No problem.
That's all the time we have. Thank you so much.
That's
You
it.
said 4 hours.
I know Jen and I very much, real quick, want to say thank you to Pat for allowing us to do this. I know this is out of the norm for what Purdue does, but thank you for the opportunity. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. Check out our podcast. It's on PCT. It's on YouTube. We'd love to have you check it out.